So Peter, I got into the e-bike game because I'm a hunter. In fact, that was the thing that attracted me to buying this company and selling e-bikes, was to serve hunters, and I feel like I know that market. Uh, are you a hunter? What's your motivation?
So I've hunted, but I'm not a hunter. We just wanted to come out with the best alternative to an ATV, basically come up with a bike that could do what an ATV could do. And the e-bike thing was honestly was almost secondary. We wanted to see if we can pull it off with just regular pedal power. By the way, you can't. It's really hard when you go through soft sand, the kind of stuff that ATVs have. The one and the weakness of e-bikes as a whole is they don't have 24 or like 32 horsepower. They have maybe two at best, like the best you can do. So how do you get the most with the least? And again, the advantage being they're so light, you can pull it off. And just using sort of the limits of engineering, I wanted to get something that would challenge it and in an easier way to get out into the backcountry. And hunters came to us. So, we had all sorts of customers start out. It's like, well, I just want more stability because I'm frail. I want more stability because I'm overweight. I want to go do crazy off-road stuff. But time and time again, it's like, well, why do you want this? Well, I'm a hunter, and I have to carry a bunch of stuff out there. And I've looked at the other e-bikes, and I don't really want to fall. I'm too old. I just don't want to anymore. And both you and I are of an age where it's just getting up from a fall. It takes so much longer to get better. So I get it. And because I'm not a hunter, but I have long experience working with products and working with people. We listen. We have a customer survey that we do every year, and we talk to our customers regularly. And they give us idea, and they tell us, okay, you could do this better, you could do that better, and we continue to improve. As an example, we introduced, I think last year or this year, we introduced the gear shield, which was on both of these bikes, and it lets you use the derailleur. Derailleur is an imperfect tool. There are other imperfect methods of shifting transmission for mid-drive e-bikes. But derailleur is not bad if you learn how to use it until you go into the weeds. And until you go into the weeds, into the forest, like if we went off, and I think we went off trail a little bit on this ride, but if you're going to go through a field, if you're going to go into the hills where there's lots of weeds, or into the forest where there's lots of sticks, sticks get caught in the chain. They tear up the derailleur. They all of a sudden disable your bike. So there you are, stuck with a bike that has a motor but doesn't have a chain. Now you've got to you got to push the whole thing out, however many miles you've gone in. So we developed this gear shield to keep, and it works fantastically. It just gets rid of that problem. It just takes that one off the list. There are other things that we're still working on the list, and we're going to continue to. But compared to, excuse me, hunters who are asking for a solution, their alternative was what? It was an internally geared hub that actually worked with these motors, which cost $3,000. Here's a gear shield that costs $200. So I may not be a hunter, but I'm certainly listening to them, and I'm becoming an expert at hunting e-bikes. That's what I've become.
So you mentioned having a lot of customers that are hunters. So what kind of hunter do you think is served best by the Rungu e-bikes?
Sure. So anyone who understands the benefits of e-bike hunting but doesn't want to take the diggers anymore, or wants to avoid them in the first place, that's the ideal hunting customer for us. Most of our customers hunt deer and turkey. That's because that's probably the most popular stuff to hunt anyway. But we do have I think we do have a few elk hunters out there. But you can't, the limitation, not with any e-bike, you can't really drag something the size of a cow down a hill, you're going to have to chop it up. And but heavy duty stability while hunting, it particularly the we continue to have stories of, or I continue to engage with our customers, and they tell me stories about their reasons, and they're all roughly the same, but it comes back to access areas where you can't, because there are more and more regulations or more and more restrictions on motorized vehicle access across the country, and also heavy duty, because they want something that can handle the kind of terrain that they want to go on to, like their four-wheeler used to, or what to drag things. And that's a recent conversation with one of our customers. That's a whole story. Was like, I drag a lot of stuff. I drag my stand up into the hills and through the trees, and I don't relish the thought, like you described, going downhill with my stand, with my gear, with my kit, with my bow, and with dragging an animal and then eating it, going downhill with all that stuff. It just doesn't appeal to me. So and beyond that, sort of scouting for plowed fields. That was the last example. If you're talking about plowed field, you've cameras around the field, deer plot, what have you, that getting across the field on a single front wheel, if you go fast enough, you can do it, like on a dirt bike. But like I mentioned before, you don't have that much horsepower. You're not going to be going that fast, and going slow with one front wheel, it's really, really hard to pull it off going over a plowed field, and we make it easier. So those that's the gamut.
So I'll just add to that, based on what I've seen, to me, the build quality, the heavy duty frame, the testing that you do before shipping the bike, those are all key. It doesn't matter what equipment I'm using, my truck, a four-wheeler, riding my mules, riding an e-bike. The last thing that I want to have happen is to get stranded out in the woods because something's failed me. So all that build quality and attention to detail, I think that's very important for a hunter.
Right.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add, and so chain management's a big thing. That's the mid-drive. The advantage of the mid-drive motor is that you have a transmission that you can get. You can really get through stuff that you can't do with a hub drive, like steeper hills, deeper sand, mud, snow, you name it. Challenges. And the moment the chain breaks, it's game over. So our training videos really make a difference with regard to how you operate, and that's literally the weak link in the design. And suffice to say, if you're starting out on these things, get another chain. Just get another chain, because you'll probably break it. You'll probably break your first one as you're learning.
Witness. I broke a chain in my first 10 minutes riding an e-bike, and as you mentioned, it's not really a weakness in the design. For me, it was more not understanding how much torque these motors put out and how easy it is to break a chain if I'm climbing a hill on the wrong gear. It's just going to happen. So Peter, when you came up to visit, you brought me a little surprise. You brought me a different saddle for the bike that I was riding, and I mean, the one that came with the bike was great, but the one that you brought was even better. I've learned from running e-bike generation that a lot of customers like to customize their equipment. They have different accessories that they want to use. Can you talk a little bit about some of the upgrades and accessories that are available for Rungu bikes?
Sure. So like the bike that you were riding, it had the upgraded saddle, and that was actually a new one that we're testing. It's an alternative to our tractor seat. That's, again, our customer's term. They always they wanted a tractor seat, so we got a tractor seat. That's the FSCR saddle. We had on these bikes, we have something that's coming out in the second half of 2024, which are the mud guards with diverters. So the two front wheels, now your wheels are, you get the extra stability, but guess what? Now the wheels are right by your knees. So they're not hidden by the frame. It's not a single wheel hidden by the frame. You get a lot of mud, you get a lot of splatter, and that's been something we've been working on for a long time, trying to find the right product. These new mud guards that we deploy are excellent. They're much longer, so they keep your legs a lot drier. Even though, I mean, in the weather we were riding, it didn't really matter. But the other problem that as soon as you have a bike that can get into mud, it's like, okay, well, now you're going to take it in the mud, and now the mud's going to collect on the wheels, and you're going to ride until a point where the mud just seizes up the entire equipment. And I'll, put a picture of one of these mud bikes. And the problem was that mud gets caked up underneath the mud guard, and it stops the wheel. So we've added these mud diverters, which we'll release soon. You had those, I had those, and they do make a difference. They're effective in keeping the bike from getting gunked up. Gear shield, we already talked about, is a great addition, really worthwhile for any sort of off-roading where you're going through weeds, and who isn't? I mean, you're going through weeds, sticks, etc., fields. The gear shield is absolutely perfect for dealing with that. The other thing is tire liners. The Tannis introduced the Tannis Armor tire liners a few years ago. We started with something called the anti-pinch flat tire liners, which were to prevent pinch flats, because one of the advantages of having these fat tires is being able to run the pressure really low, and you get these pinch flats in the tubes. People talk about tubeless, but please don't go there. That's just that's not for hunters. That's for bike guys. And we added these, and Tannis came out like a year later with something that was better, and we abandoned our design for the Tannis design because it also prevents goat heads from puncturing inner tubes, etc. So those are really big. Those are the ones, probably the top three accessories that I would talk about for anyone looking to get an e-bike from us or from you of our build. And there are not 100, but there are several other accessories or things like the cargo. There's a hitch rack that we make specially. Our bikes are a little bit longer and heavier, so getting a hitch rack that works with your truck so that you get the rest of your bed freed up, that's something we offer as well. And I can't think of any others at the moment, but there are a bunch of, and there are more coming, by the way. There are more accessories coming, and but I think those are salient ones right now.
I'll just mention another. So a lot of e-bikes come with a rear rack. I would say that the Rungu that I was riding came with more of a platform. There's for a guy wanting to haul a bunch of stuff into the woods, that's a heck of a platform to use to carry gear.
Yeah, well, I'll throw a picture up of some of the more interesting uses of that. But you're right. We designed that special. It's not a typical e-bike rack. It's sort of a compromise, or typical bike rack. It's a compromise between a bike rack and what you get with an ATV. And yeah, it'll support a lot of weight, and it's big.
Yeah. So you didn't really mention it as part of upgrades, but I think we should talk about it. So we rode these bikes hard for a good 2 hours. I think when I got home, we had probably ridden 8 miles in terrain that was all straight up and down, rocky routes. So we were working these bikes hard. But when I got home, I didn't even charge the battery because I think my battery was still above 85%. So can you talk a little bit about the battery capacity and the range expectations for these bikes?
Sure. Yeah. So because we stayed in the low gear, ultimately, the motor was spinning faster and operating much more efficiently. If you're pedaling slowly, motor's operating inefficiently, and as a result, you're going to cut back a lot on power. But there are 6 factors that make that affect range, and go over them because I know that there's a lot of noise in the e-bike world. People making, even we on our spec sheet, I'll admit, we make an outlandish claim because the math tells you that if you were to ride in a circle on flat ground for and you weighed 175 pounds and you didn't stop and you just rode at 10 miles an hour, you could get 240 miles off of some of these things. And that's usually the kind of math games that folks will play. It's like, yeah, technically you can do that, but in reality, you're going to get a lot less. And there, like I said, 6 factors that make that. And this is science. It's not art. This is something that was figured out good 30 years ago by smarter people than me. And we just apply this we have models that we developed and we apply these factors so that we can figure range out effectively. So in fact, anybody's invited who's looking at our product, we're happy to give free estimate. You just tell us where you want to go and we can estimate. And our estimates are good within a mile. It's because of these 6 factors: the weight of the rider, bike, and load. So that's obviously, that affects the car too. I mean, if you're carrying a lot more, you're going to get lower gas mileage. Capacity of the battery and watt hours. A lot of times folks will, or a competition for that matter, all e-bike companies will report amp hours, but amp hours are just part of the equation. Watt hours are expression of the energy output for the motor or for what you can get. And you need to know that. And the speed that you're going to ride. The faster you ride, guess what? The more energy you use. So that's another one. Ground resistance. There's a huge variation difference between riding on asphalt and riding in the hills. It's like or riding through snow, for example. It's like 300 times the rolling resistance. It's significant. Incline, the amount of incline. Obviously, it takes a lot more effort to go uphill than it does go downhill. Well, that plays itself out in the battery. And then finally, headwind. Not to say that this is a big thing for us because we're using, if you're going off-road, you're not going very fast. So that's not going to be a big factor. But the moment you start taking these e-bikes for the jaunt down into town at 27 miles an hour or whatever their top speed is, then it becomes a factor. It does eat up battery pretty quick. Again, it's just these are all factors that weigh in. And we do have several. And as your website will soon show, you'll have some options with regard to battery upgrades. But most importantly, if you've got a doubt, go to our website, the Rungu Dualie website, and ask about a free estimate. And there's a short process, short thing to fill out, and we'll get back to you with a report.
So, Peter, a lot of the e-bikes that are available today are made in China. Can you talk about where Rungu Dualie e-bikes are made?
Absolutely, yeah. So most of our bike components, most of the bike components are sourced or made under contract in China and Taiwan, because 95% of all the bike factories are in China and Taiwan, and they have they have all the skills, they have the capabilities, they have all the tools to make these things and make them really well, but they do need guidance. So we have, as I said, do all the design development, and then quality, figuring out what does quality mean and how do you measure it here in the US, and then we transport it to our contractors in Taiwan and China to get the job done right. And then we import a lot of these components and then build a whole bunch of other components, like the rack you were talking about. That's a sheet metal design that's sourced in Southern California. That's also why it's so expensive, but that's another story. And then we also 3D print parts. So a lot of non-structural things like the gear shield, which is not structural, it's a 3D printed part. We manufacture that technically right in our little factory, in our 3D print garden. It's a little group. So when we do all that, it gives us the benefit of controlling the quality at the component level before we actually assemble any bike. And because we assemble it, we make sure that every component has gone through has gone through some basic quality control before it gets out to our customers. So it's not a surprise. They show up, if you show up, open a box and like the handlebars are missing. I mean, we don't, fortunately, we won't do that unless, that's a quick solve problem, but it's still, it's something that occurs if it's out of sight and if your production process is out of sight and out of mind.
Mm-hmm. So what should a customer expect when they order a Rungu bike, Peter? Can they just, if they're in California, can they just run over and pick one up as soon as they place their order?
As soon as they place the order, no. But as soon as they place the order, what happens is we take the order, we build it to the requirements, the specifications that, because there are variations. I want it with this, I want the liners, etc. Then we'll build it up, and then within 5 to 10 days, the bike will be ready for shipment. And if you are in California, yes, absolutely. If you coordinate through eBike Generation a purchase, and you happen to be in California or close to our factory in Santa Ana, which is in Orange County, yeah, absolutely. We love having our customers come over and get a little bit extra training. We go over all the stuff that we just talked about in this video, but and we go over all the components of the bike and how to operate it and give you a lot of that training right up front. And love it. We unfortunately only get about 5% of our customers ever showing up. They prefer to have it delivered to their home, but I'm happy to have you.
So Peter, let's talk a little bit about some of the different models that are available in the Rungu Dualie. Can you give us a walkthrough of what are the different versions and which ones are the most popular?
Sure. So our most popular are the Rungu Dualie Steep, the one we were riding, and the Rungu Dualie XR Rubicon Trail Edition, which is our top of the line, our flagship product. Rubicon Trail Edition we'll work our way down from that. It's the most expensive, but it has a lot of stuff on it. Like we talked about, having a spare chain, having a spare tube. The liners kind of solve that, but having the tools you need in case you're stuck out in the backcountry and you want to get back without pushing that distance. The tools are there with the Rubicon Trail, and it's got a whole bunch of extra components to prevent any, to minimize the opportunity for any problems to occur. So it's rugged. It's also the heaviest. It has a double. It's one of our 2 XR models, and the XR stands for I think extra range or extended range. Sorry, extended range. So that means that they have 2 batteries, and these 2 batteries are actually linked up electronically, so that they don't just charge each other, but they are their energy is directed towards the motor, and it essentially doubles the range. It doubles the range in spite of the added weight. The XR Steep, which is essentially the Steep but with a double battery setup. It has the same double battery setup as the XR Rubicon Trail Edition, and it has one Tannis liner in the rear wheel, because that extra weight on the rack, it gives you a higher likelihood of getting a pinch flat. So, but it's the least expensive of the double battery units we sell. Then beneath that is the Rungu Dualie Rugged. And the Rugged is the single battery version of the Rubicon Trail Edition. So this year we've introduced the larger battery. So it's got I think 30% more range than the Steep and the Standard, which are the next two models down. But it has all the other kit that we talked about. The Rungu Dualie Steep is the next one, and that's one we talked about at length. It's the single battery. It's a great affordable package. And then finally, there's the entry level product or entry level model, which is the Standard, and it's got everything it's got the same motor as every one of our e-bikes. It has the same components as the XR Steep, or most of the components are the same as the XR Steep and the Steep. But it's a single battery, and it can be added on. You can add a lot of the components. You can sort of make it with the things that you want from the other products, and without a lot of limitation. Probably the most interesting combo this year, in terms of for the budget conscious, is the standard with the cargo trailer. The cargo trailer is actually less expensive than the cargo rack that we talked about. And those two, it's an unbeatable pair. It's really good. But if you decide on the standard, do get the Tannis liners. It'll save you a lot of time out in the field if you get a flat.
So Peter, the name Rungu is a unique, it's kind of an intriguing name. Can you talk about where that name comes from?
The Rungu is we had a bunch of names for the company, and we weren't talking exclusively we weren't talking to any hunters at the time. We were talking to sports, what do you call them? The action sports types. A lot of folks Southern California's got a bunch of action sports businesses, and we gave them a bunch of names. And Rungu was interesting because it's actually a weapon that the Maasai, which is a African tribe up, I think, in the hills, the mountains of Ethiopia, that they use to kill lions. It's just a stick. It's I think I told you before that it's the Irish, it's an African version of a shillelagh. So, and shillelagh doesn't roll off the tongue like Rungu. So we went with the easier one to pronounce. Even though, as I was telling you, I think aside that I don't even pronounce Rungu isn't even the correct pronunciation according to the Africans. I keep getting corrected every time I run into African safari hunters. But that said, it is an interesting device, particularly that there are, and I've never seen this, but I've heard that the Maasai will hunt lions with these things, and that doesn't sound like a great idea to me. If throwing a stick at a lion, I think the lion come back, but if they can kill him, I guess they can get away with it. So, but it impressed me only that fact that, or whether it's a fact or it's a myth, that they can actually kill a lion with a stick. Well, we're talking about an e-bike that can be used for doing things that you would never think an e-bike should be used for. So that fit.
So Peter, I'm 6'2", 230, and I've found that this bike fits me really well. Can you discuss maybe a little bit the geometry of the design of the Rungu,
Sure,
maybe versus other e-bikes?
sure. So there's two sides to the answer. Geometry has a lot to play in its capabilities. The fact it's got a longer wheelbase, and that you're positioned a little bit further forward from the rear wheel. It gives it the geometry gives it better performance characteristics off road. But that aside, from just a personal fit and feel, I'm 6 foot and I'm about 200. The bike is designed to, we really have one frame fits all, but it's a very, to make it as rigid as it is, it's kind of a BMX design style frame, which is what they call a modified step over. I don't know. I forget. There's a lot of funny terms in the bike industry, but it means that you can get, it can accommodate people of a variety of heights. So we can get up to, we recommend from a range of 5 feet all the way up to 6'3". So you're just under the threshold. At 6'3", we recommend steering risers. They're an accessory that we'll get onto your website as well. But steering risers lift up the steering wheel, the handlebars, so that and the biggest issue is that when you're over 6'3", your knees start to hit the linkage rod between the two handlebars. So bike's pretty compatible with a lot of different sizes. We do have all of the above. We've got folks that are 6'6". Got a guy up in Washington State who is 6'6" and 400 pounds. It's a little excessive on our weight. We have a weight limit that gets up to about 350 pounds, depending on which bike you get. It's between 325, 350. But but again, it's engineered, so those are the weight limits. Obviously, engineered a little bit higher, but we only cop to 350 pounds. And then we have customers who are as short as 5 feet and a lot lighter, and they can handle this too. It is a big bike. So if you're 5 feet and weigh 125 pounds, you will have some challenges moving it around. But I know that most of the time, if you're hunting, you're going to carry a lot of gear and you're going to have a lot of that weight, and you're going to be thankful that you have the extra rubber underneath you.
One thing that happens often on our website, or we'll get calls, and we have people that are shopping for trikes. Maybe they are a little bit older, or have some kind of physical limitation, and they're looking for a trike for stability, and they see the three-wheeled bike, the Rungu. And my tendency has been to tell them, look, this is no trike. This is built for an entirely different purpose. Can you comment a little bit on that? A little
Sure,
bit about
sure.
that?
Yeah, and thank you for raising that. Rungu's is an off-road vehicle, and it's meant for the extra front wheels are for capability more than the stability of a trike. And the stability of a trike is if you can't walk, or meaning you can't walk easily, you can't walk unassisted, you have difficulty, you have frailty of some form where you really need the stability of a four-wheel vehicle and you're trying to get away with three, then there are a lot of adult trikes that are out there that are intended specifically for very low speed on-road kind of touring. But our wheelbase, or our wheels aren't separated by that much distance, and there's a reason for that beyond the anti-washout capability. When you put the wheels apart as much as they are, if you take a corner at any speed, you'll flip over, and that happens on ATVs as much as adult trikes. That if you've got too wide a stance and you keep the weight, the center of gravity is too high up, you will flip on a corner, which makes them pretty dangerous. And that's the trade-off. If you're really looking for just on-road stability, go slow, get an adult trike, and they have plenty of e-trikes out there as well. This is not the product for you. This is if you want to go fast off-road in difficult terrain, and you want to go fast on-road, so you can take a corner at pretty high speed. Now, you'll lift one of the wheels off, or the outside wheel off, but that doesn't matter because you have the inside wheel on the ground. But you don't need as much stability, or you don't need as much balance as you do for a regular two-wheel bike. But you do need quite a bit. And to that end, we have a few people out there who just needed that extra bit of balance because of, in a few of these cases, traumatic brain injury. But they were otherwise fine. It's just there was a little, and that extra wheel just gave them extra confidence. But that's not the intent. It's not the intent at all. It's really about having the pair of skis on a mogul field. You've got contact on the ground, and you can leverage that to get through stuff you wouldn't ordinarily without a lot of skill.
Yeah. So Peter, you have a model of these bikes called the Rubicon Trail Edition, which to me kind of suggests that you've ridden the Rubicon Trail on one of these things. Is that the case? So I know the Rubicon Trail because I've built Jeeps, and I haven't been on the Rubicon Trail, but it's legendary. Did you really ride these bikes on the Rubicon Trail?
Yep. We were dumb enough to do that. So in 2018, when we started getting when we really started working with the mid-drive bikes and found all that torque that we had available to us, we wanted to look for something to prove it out. And since we're in California, and Rubicon Trail sounded like a good idea at the time, little did we know that it is the premier trail in the country for Jeeps, and it's really, really hard. It's a very difficult trail. I don't recommend it to anybody. I still have a couple of nightmares coming from it. But on the other hand, I was shocked at how accessible. I'm not an off-roader either. I don't do a lot of stuff off-road, and this was way above my comfort level. Yet we made it, and we went over rocks. We have a video. Fortunately, it was our first major ride, and I was the video guy, and I forgot all the GoPros. We only had a couple sections where I got off the bike to be able to film, but the fact that we were able to do that and get off the trail in one day is testimony to the capability of these bikes. And we keep that name as a reminder of what you can do, and also all the stuff that you need, because you're going to be running into a lot of challenges if you take that kind of off-road terrain. So the Rubicon Trail is based off of actual experience on that trail, and even on it. I mean, I would be scared. I would be, I think, even more scared if I were in a Jeep doing that trail. I mean, it was so, there were some drop offs. There were some drop offs. In fact, and without, not to bring the tenor down a little bit, I didn't learn this until after, but only 3 weeks before, there was a Jeep that rolled off of Cadillac Hill. The driver did not survive. And Cadillac Hill is the stuff that nightmares are made of. So it's really challenging. I don't know that I'll do it again, but you never know. Never say never, right?
Well, Peter, I think a lot of people get on the website, or if they happen to see one of these in person, they're going to look at it and say, wow, that's something new, that's something unique. And it definitely is, but the uniqueness and the novelty to me goes way beyond that extra front wheel. The engineering that's gone into the bike, the focus on build quality, the focus on making sure that all the components are being tested to make sure that the customer is not going to have issues with the bike. Even as I mentioned at the beginning of our interview, the packaging and how this thing shows up on the front door. This is a very quality piece of equipment for a serious hunter or outdoorsman. And to me, that's the unique thing. The dual front wheel is just part of what makes it work.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. Spoken well.
All right, that's all I have, Peter.
All right. Okay.
As we conclude, I just wanted to say, so in your intro, you mentioned Tillamook State Forest and stuff. I didn't mention anything specific about locale, just because I know that some of the local jurisdictions are really weird about filming stuff on public land for commercial purposes. And I don't want to get slapped down for that. So
okay.
Let's just make sure that we don't have anything in here like signs or anything that make it obvious where we're at. There's people that are going to watch this and know where we're at, but let's not advertise it.
Sure. I'll just say, what do you want me to call it? Oregon?
I just call it
Northwest Oregon.
I just call it the coastal mountain range in Oregon.
Coastal mountain range in Oregon. You wrote it down.
Yeah.
Coastal.
Yeah, I've heard of videos getting taken down off of YouTube because they were filmed in national forest and did not have a permit.
Yeah. I fortunately have not been hit by that, but because we're not in the millions of views yet.
If it's gonna happen anywhere, it's gonna happen in Oregon.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, just like I was mentioning, I think we're recording. I'll end the recording. We don't need that anymore. Let's figure out how to do that. Stop recording. Stop.